Thank you, PJ. It is time for another edition of the Pair and a Spare podcast. We are presented, as always, by Jack's Cafe, jaxcafe.com, from football across Minnesota. We've got Chip Scoggins and, of course, Ryan Burns from GopherIllustrated.com. You can follow him at Ryan Burns MN on Twitter. You can also follow all of us and see what we're up to at the Pair and Spare Pod. It's right there below you on the ticker. And we are all back. I think we are all sleepy. I'll just say this. I'm still recovering from the red-eye overnight flight. Plane 2 is what I was on. They took 2 planes out to Pasadena, more specifically the Ontario airport, which was a choice because that was about an hour away from the Rose Bowl and everywhere where we stayed. But I'm still recovering from plane 2. Are you guys recovering from your 6 a.m. flight out of LAX the next morning after the Gophers beat UCLA?
Well, I'm still just disappointed in Chip because I get back from the PJ press conference and he is just gone. Just gone. And so who is the first person I see at 5 a.m? It's Chip sitting with his legs crossed, little readers on. And I'm like, Chip, and I thought we weren't going to be on this flight. And there he is. Yeah, had to get home. Yeah, Chip, what time did you wake up for the record here? Because I know you were talking to me and my wife.
3 a.m.
So what time did you go to bed?
I wasn't even asleep yet.
Yeah, I don't understand. You went to bed at, you told me 3:30 for a 6. I don't understand. I thought about that the whole way home. We have a 6 a.m. flight and you went to bed at 3:30. Like, I was trying to do the math in my head. Like, what were you trying to accomplish there?
Well, we got back from the Fleck presser, me and Andy Greeter, at like 10:30 because, of course, PJ's late. He's always late.
Yeah.
Deshaun Foster had been done for a half hour. By the way, there's a lot of things. We can talk about the Rose Bowl stadium and just like accoutrements of that game in terms of atmosphere. One of the most
great word.
Some of us try to have a diverse vernacular here. Especially,
you could just say vocabulary. Do you have like a calendar on your desk there with the word of the day? When did accoutrement? I think it's accoutrement, isn't it? I think you got to pronounce it right. I don't think it's accoutrement.
It was good.
Well, either way, when you work for Sports Byline USA like Randy Byrne here, some of us have to kind of have vocabulary. But we got kicked out of like the Rose Bowl press box, and then you got to finish writing and transcribing, and then it's trying to like turn your mind off after an experience like that was the whole thing. But Chip, between me with you on the way home and then you with Guardsy on the way out, it was just a joy to get to watch you interact out there in the wild.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry to leave you hanging there, but that 2-hour time loss is not good for deadlines. So
right,
I had to write, and I wanted to write about the experience more so than the game, anyways.
Yep.
That turned out to be had a dramatic finish, but I just thought the first time back at the Rose Bowl since 62 and all the people that traveled, and that's my favorite college football place in the world to go, and a perfect day for it, weather and the tailgate that they had. I just wanted to kind of capture the scene. So
so you could have left at halftime is what you're saying.
No, I included game details in there, but I can tell you the editors back home were not going to wait for me to go down and work the locker room and come back up and do it. So
even Mr. Football across Minnesota, think about that, Guardsy, for how important he is.
And I had a 6 a.m. flight. And
that was a choice by both of you.
I read the fine print on the thing we got from UCLA saying the press box was going to be closing at, what did it say, 10:30 or 11?
No, it was just before midnight.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But all right, so you got your stuff done.
Yeah.
Anyways,
that's good.
Let me see if this works because this is Friday morning as I'm working down the G terminal. This is probably about 7:23. And as you know, Burnsy, my favorite place to eat at the Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport, much to your chagrin, is the Delta Club. And I was just elated with all the accoutrements of the new Delta Club in the G concourse. When
right
we found
next door.
Exactly. When we found out that our gate was like G19, and that's exactly where the new club is. So I was elated. So I'm coming up about 7:30. I think I went through security about 7:20. Chip, I'm sure, had been there for multiple hours. And I come upon This
There he
guy.
is.
There's this guy. Have you ever seen? This is right at the entrance of the Delta Club. Have you ever seen a man more in his element than this guy right here? I mean, he's got his bag that he doesn't need to check. He's got the leg crossed. I'm sure he's charging. Is that if you ever want to see a man at peace? There he is, right there. How are you feeling right there?
Well, not great because the chargers in the seat weren't working. I tried like 5 different ones.
You had a 4-hour flight coming up, Chip.
Always be charging. When you see an outlet, always be charging. ABC.
I just can't even with you. Oh,
I swear we need
Why
to
have those things on the seat if they're not going to work?
It's true.
Do they ever work?
In my hotel room, there was one whole bank that didn't work, which was frustrating. The one by the bed. Yeah. The USB didn't work. So the one by the desk worked, but I had to be up early the next morning at 5 o'clock local time to go do the Fox 9 pregame show. So yeah, we can talk about how I completely mismanaged my day, and that's why I'm still tired. But yeah, it was great to see. And then I didn't want to bother you. Well, first of all, I wanted to go get my breakfast. Yeah, but secondly, I didn't want to bother you because you looked like just I didn't know about the charger mishap, but you were content. Like you were where you needed to be in plenty of time. You were getting ready for 38D or wherever you were sitting, the middle seat there in the back.
Seat, yeah. I got the last seat to LA.
And I don't know, Bernsey, so you've been on a flight. Did you walk on the plane with Chipper? Because
I got on. Yeah, I was there on beforehand, and then as Chip was walking down the aisle, I could see this little crappy grin hit his face, and so I pulled up my phone because I wanted to show him that I'm plugged in. I felt he looked like he saw his daughter for the first time with how excited and elated he was that some of us were charging our phones.
I will say this. I am very proud of Gopher fans that are on team 100%. Do you see the guy when I was walking down? He had the portable charger.
Yeah,
he held that thing was awesome.
Yeah, do you not have one of those? Sweet. That's stunning to me that you don't have one of those. Yeah,
I was going to ask that guy to send me the link to it. That was pretty cool.
Well, you don't buy things online, so how are you going to get it?
No, I would do the link. You're not going to buy anything.
Well, my wife would.
Yeah,
she'd help me.
But
I gaslit Chip in front of my wife, and I was like, Chip, I want you to explain to my wife, when was the last time you bought something online? And it's like 5 a.m. My wife is the furthest thing from a morning person, and she heard that and went, "What?
Yeah,
like why?"
I don't want people in my business.
Yeah, I don't want them in my business.
I don't want them in my business. But walking down, I'm just trying to get on the plane. I was like 35F. Chip and I are just buried in the back of the plane. And it took forever. We held up the boarding process because every other row, somebody wanted to ask Chip what his phone percentage was. It's all Gopher fans out there. They all know him. I'm just trying to get on the plane, and the Pied Piper of phone chargers can't stop. He's like Tim Walz or, President Trump walking down and shaking hands with everybody, showing him the phone. What's that like that's now your legacy?
Well, I appreciate that people are on my side. Did you see how many people were like, yeah, I'm charging? Like, there's a community of us. You guys, I like the guy that was giving you grief about the time you tore up from the back of the plane.
Yeah.
That's that was an old
right there. That was an old Perit and Aspare story. Yeah, the flight to Mesa, where I jumped the second that the plane beat, and I sprinted.
And then you blame someone. I'm not going to say who, but you blame.
Well, I'll talk about it. I blame my mother-in-law. I wasn't going
to go there.
No, that's fine. It's actually I blame the people that that particular flight had no urgency to get off the ground because it was all Gopher. You would have gone nuts, Chip. It was all Gopher fans, and I remember going up to the gate and being like, "Hey, we were supposed to take off like an hour ago, or like in 10 minutes. Is everything okay?"
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're bringing the plane over now. I'm like, okay, cool. And then it took forever to land. I'm in Mesa. We went over that. That's like episode 4 of the podcast. That's how long ago it was. But the reason we were on that plane is because they added it, and then we were able to add my mother-in-law because she could come out and join us for the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. So, but I lost the battle that day because I missed my TV show, but I won the war because now I don't get questioned as much why I need to leave the day before. Why? Because you never know. But yeah,
it's all part of the plan.
Yeah, I sprinted up the front. I've never moved so fast.
That was a great recall by that guy. So
yeah.
But I do appreciate everybody charging up. You never know when you may not be around a charger, so get it done.
I just can't even with you today.
ABC, always be charging, Bernsey.
I just can't even. or
All
even
right, go
even
ahead.
just like the soda social.
Yeah,
I
let's
know
talk
Chip,
about
you
the
were
fan.
down doing an actual job, but Guards and I went over to the soda social at Barney's Beanery, and first of all, they were not prepared for. There was a miscommunication somewhere between the alumni association and the
Yep.
venue.
Yep.
Because there were not nearly enough bartenders and servers for the throngs of Gopher fans that were there. But I think for the couple hours we were there, Guardsy, I mean, we had to have talked to so many of you listeners, and we're very appreciative
Yeah, it
of you.
was great. It was endless. And that was the point. That's why we wanted to go there. We wanted to hang out with all of you and see all of you and watch all of you have a good time. You know, I couldn't go deep into the night, as we mentioned. I think I left right after you, Bernsey, right after that. But it was awesome. And even Chip, the guy on the plane that had the recall from Arizona, kind of proves the point of how this thing has changed, that traveling to Gopher games has become something that people do. And I heard you say this, Bernsey, on Gopher Gridiron, and you're 100% right. What changed everything for this program, in my opinion, well, a couple of things, was the Citrus Bowl, because everybody there, I'm convinced, we were planning for the Rose Bowl. Or I'm sorry, that's Tampa. But the Citrus Bowl changed everything in that it was the first New Year's Day Bowl in literally since '62, and 20,000 people showed up. I remember being on the field with some people from the former administration at the Citrus Bowl, and they turned around and they said, "We feel like a college football program now. We're at a New Year's Day bowl game, and our fans came." And that changed it. And I'll say this, you got to give credit, and you would remember this, Chip. I mean, Joel Maturi getting the stadium done, bringing football back on campus. I think now we're seeing that a generation has cycled through the tailgating, the game day vibes, the game day experience, everything other than the game, and the fact that the team has been competitive for most of that. There haven't been very many losing seasons in that 15 years, since Jerry Kill got here. And so the whole thing has just completely changed. And the Citrus Bowl, I think, changed it, where people finally realized bowl trips are fun. Traveling with your friends and family to college football games are fun. And it's something that you should do if you have the opportunity to do it. And it's been awesome to see that. It's just been awesome because we all love college football, and we all grew up around different college football programs. Chip, obviously you, Tennessee. My family, as everyone knows, is from Iowa. Like, that's what they did. I mean, my whole childhood, it was, we opened up Christmas presents somewhere in Iowa, and then Uncle Terry was getting in the car because he was driving to San Diego, San Antonio, Rose Bowl a couple of times. Like, they were going to work. Like Terry and Connie with Michael and Amy, my cousins, were getting in the car and they were going, because that's just what you did. And now Gopher fans, I think, at least once a year, are doing something like that, which is amazing.
Well, you're right. The campus thing, and when we heard, Glenn Mason and Maturi say you've got to get a stadium back on campus because it's important, they weren't just saying that because they wanted to, they thought it sounded good. No, I was talking to some guys this weekend about the Rose Bowl and how great it is, but that's a long way for those from their campus in terms of driving. I don't know how many miles it is, probably not that far, but there is probably for the students a disconnect when you're not on campus. And there's something about college football that I think that's special is you're going back on campus, because there's a vibe on a college campus. I don't care where you are. There's energy. There's nostalgia. There's all that. So you need to be on campus. But I agree wholeheartedly with the Citrus Bowl that changed it. And I covered that. And I remember that day before pep rally that they had.
Yeah.
And for years, that everybody knows what the narrative about Gopher. They won't travel, right? They're getting skipped over bowl goods because they won't travel. That changed the narrative that day. And I remember going to that the pep rally that they had, and I was thinking, oh my God, there's a ton of Gopher fans here. It felt like there was 10,000 people just at that pep rally.
Yep.
And I think it really started to change that day, where if there's a cool destination or a team that to get behind, or it's fun, that it became fun again, right? And so, and then obviously Fleck came in and he's done a good job with the students and connected with the younger generation. And so you're seeing it. I mean, there's been evidence, and it's not every game, but you think about Colorado a couple years ago,
North Carolina,
this game, North Carolina, when there's a a big game feel to this. And this one to me was totally different because of the nostalgia of the Rose Bowl and everything. I mean, Gopher fans showed out for this one. I mean, it was impressive the number of people that came, and not only came like that. I assume it was the university put on, but the pep rally or the tailgate that they had before the game, that thing was awesome. I mean, the setup for it on that golf course and decorations, and they had the DJs going and people. I walked over there. It started at 3, and I walked over there because I wanted to talk to some folks. Doggone line was all the way down the street. I mean, people getting in. I was like, man, this is impressive. So, I understand why PJ gave the fans a shout out after the game because they really brought it and had a good time.
Well, Bernsey, I'll let you go here, but I'll just say real quick, you can feel it on the sidelines. I mean, you can feel when it's third down and you need to stop, you could hear them. Like they were in it. They're not just there to look at the sunset. Like it's the fan base has completely shifted, and it's a younger crowd. Like you say, they've gotten younger now, where it's people all of our ages. Because that was the other criticism forever, right? Was that the Gopher crowd is too old. It's people that literally were at the 1962 Rose Bowl, and they don't want you to stand during the games, and they don't like any of that, and all of this. That's completely shifted. Where now you've got people that were students at TU when the stadium was built, that probably went, that had good memories, that now have kids that are now in the Sky U Mall lot or Lot 37 or any of these lots, and that's who's coming, along with the people that have been coming forever, the diehard group, the creative charters groups that have been going on for years, which are awesome. Now those planes are a lot younger than they used to be, and people are ready to go. So, but it makes a difference. I mean, I feel it on the field, and I'm not even playing. I can hear when it's a big moment because the people behind me are going crazy. Bernsey, go ahead.
Well, I'm distracted by your game balls, considering that Fleck gave out 15,000 IOU game balls to the people that traveled out there. So you've almost got 3. The fans got at least 1, and here Chip and I are. Chip, what do we got to do here to get on the Guardsy bandwagon with some of these game balls? But
that was a great line by Fleck.
I don't think you can have 2 more different atmospheres from USC home game last week to the UCLA Rose Bowl experience, because I think I said it to Chip in the press box. It felt like a professional basketball game, or even just like a bowl game in general. There was no vibe I didn't know where the UCLA students were. It was a late arriving crowd. You saw the Gopher fans, you heard the Gopher fans, but there was just no atmosphere of consistency to that game until late in the fourth quarter. It's just I can understand why there's a disconnect potentially between UCLA and their fans, because to your guys' point, it's not an on-campus stadium. It was one of the strangest things to see from a field storming and a sold-out Huntington Bank Stadium crowd 7 days before, to then witnessing the lead-up, the pregame production, the on-field announcer trying to get people hyped. Again, I felt like I was at Target Center with some of that stuff.
It's true.
Well, I saw somebody tweet. I can't remember who it was, but they tweeted out how long it takes for students to get from campus to there. Now, I assume they have shuttle buses or something, but even that, you're going to have a hard time getting a lot of students to get on shuttle buses to drive 35, 40 minutes to, the Rose Bowl is great and I love it, but as a home venue, when you're that far away and you're trying to get students to come to the game, they have a lot of work with their football program, I would say.
Yeah,
a lot.
Just even hearing, I would argue it was probably 60-40 UCLA to Minnesota fans, but that's still 15,000-ish Gopher fans that I do think ended up making an appearance. And I don't know if people could hear it on the TV, but as Guardsy said, from being live there and some of those big moments in the second half, you could absolutely hear Gopher fans making an impact on the road, which think about that statement 5-10 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it was fun. And the student section was right behind the Gopher bench. It was the kind of those first 8 to 10 rows down the sideline, and they had room for more. It was not full. And then when that kind of bar set and then it started to be Gopher fans, that was all Gopher fans. I loved it. The DJ was hype, man. The DJ was fire. And it was all like 90s. It was all like 90s hip hop too. So it's like, if you want to play California Love by Tupac and Snoop all night, I'm here for it. Like 90s Guardsy printing out the lyrics at Southview Middle School in the library, the media center, so I could keep up with Snoop and Tupac for California Love. I'll do that all night. It doesn't matter to me. That was phenomenal.
And the flashing lights that they kept doing.
Yeah, the lights were cool. Like it was. You're right, Burns. You texted me that in the morning that it felt like an NBA game, and there was some of that to it. But they got to try something different, right? They have to make it some type of. Everyone's fighting to get students at games, especially when it's 45 minutes to an hour off campus. You got to try to make it somewhat fun, but I loved it. Yeah, I could take all the 90s hip hop you could possibly bring me. Anything that has to do with that, it was great. But yeah, it was good. And you guys got to go check out like more of the stuff outside, like you say, Chip. I kind of went to the Rose Bowl and started working. But yeah, it was a blast. I can't imagine anybody had a bad time that made the trip and the effort. I mean, we talked to people that obviously flew out there. We talked to a couple people that lived in Arizona that made the drive over. Like it was just, that's what's cool. And even, down the street with USC and Penn State, when I was tooling around Santa Monica on Friday afternoon before I went up to the mountains, it's every block, everywhere you went, it was Gopher fans and Nittany Lion fans because and just they had the same vibe that we all had. Isn't this cool that we get to be out here? I mean, to go from Pennsylvania to California, like it's just not something you probably get to do very often. And that's why even Oregon and Ohio State to have that game, as much as everything's changed, like I think that this weekend on the West Coast was a good example of why I've always thought this was a great idea for the league, as crazy as it is.
I was talking to some fans about that I mean, and no offense to these other schools, but like, would you rather go check out UCLA, Oregon, Washington, or another trip to Purdue or another trip to Illinois? I mean,
correct. Even Madison and Iowa City, they're fine. I've been there. Fans have been there, and we're going to get those.
Yes. And I mean, we're all kind of have nostalgia to us, and, I'm a little more throwback and old school, but even saying that, it's like, I like the newness factor and seeing new venues and seeing new stadiums and different parts of the country. This is going to turn out to be a good thing for the Big Ten, I think. Even though we're losing some of the, traditional geographic footprints and all that. That's old school. Let's go to new places.
Yeah. I can't wait for my flight to Champaign and Newark, New Jersey in a couple weeks compared to the one to LA. But even next year, you got novelty opportunities with Cal Berkeley. You get to travel out there, or Oregon. And then in 2026, Chip Scoggins has already said he's rented out a sailboat to sailgate before that Washington Huskies game for Football Across Minnesota, Pacific Ocean Edition, I think it's going to be called.
That's
Puget Sound. The Puget Sound edition.
I like that.
Yeah, the Puget Sound edition. Yeah, but that's going to be great. That's going to be awesome. So I'm glad everybody that made it looked like had a great time. It was funny. You mentioned, Bernsey, on Gopher Gridiron too, that it was fans from 1-year-old to 80-year-old.
Everything.
We'll transition into the football like this. I went up at halftime to see some friends of mine that had made the trip that were right up there. And there was a 1-year-old or a kid. It was a little kid. He was sitting down and he had the iPad and the headphones like Chip's wearing. And he's just sitting there watching whatever screen is going on. Right.
No.
And so I kind of pointed it out to the guys, and I pointed to his dad. I'm like, that's brilliant. And the dad goes, he's the only one that's not mad right now because he doesn't know what's going on out there. He goes, he's the happiest guy here. And that was because it was brilliant. This kid he looked like you at the airport, Chip. He was so content. He's just sitting there watching his show. Every Gopher fan there is just in crisis mode because, as PJ Flex said, it was maybe one of the worst halves he's been a part of as a head football coach. He told me walking in, he literally had his sheet of things that had gone wrong and essentially said, can't get any worse. All right, row the boat, Sky Umago Gophers. And the halftime speech has gotten a lot of play, and because never in my whatever year this is have I had so many people affiliated with the team come to the sideline and say, were you in there at halftime? And I would say, no, I was talking to some friends, and they just go, it was pretty good. Like
really?
It was something. Like he and Max confirmed it on the field after. He goes, yeah, it was challenging because we played horrible. Like, did we expect he was going to hand out orange slices and, Kool-Aids and say,
Juice
go get them?
boxes.
Yeah, some juice boxes. Like, but I've never had that many people. Were you in
Wow.
there? That was something. One guy said it
Wow.
wasn't quite a pregame speech in terms of fire, but it was close. And because usually it's just let's go out there and get it done. But it was, and he addressed it too after. But obviously they needed to do something because to talk football now, the first half was dreadful.
Well, the start was just ridiculous. 2 drops and a negative run on the first series. It's like from the very open thing, this doesn't feel right. And we've all covered enough games where you're like, this doesn't feel right. The energy wasn't there. They were sloppy. Mistakes again. They needed it. I mean, they needed a jolt. And you could tell when they came out of the second half, they had found something in that locker room. Clearly was the head coach getting after him about it. But the first half was just a debacle.
I'm just so tired of this offense because it's
just go straight to the heart of it. I'm just so tired of this offense.
You're tired of
when it goes bad, you know exactly what, like, this offense is the easiest thing to dissect because if they don't score on the drive, I can tell you 2 things happen. They either dropped passes or their offensive line continues to just have missed assignments, penalties. There we go. Like, and if they can put it together, like they continue to do in the second halves of games, they can score points. But it's like if you can just get out of the way for Max Brosmer to go do his thing, for Darius Taylor to go do his thing. I think Greg Harbaugh has been calling good plays. Now they got to be executed. It's just this offense is so Jekyll and Hyde, or even the defense, boys. There are 3 outcomes right now for a Corey Heatherman drive: a 3-and-out, a turnover, or a 12-play touchdown drive. There is like they either get off the field immediately, they get a turnover on the 4th play, or it's going to be 10 plays, 85 yards, and a touchdown. I just what the issues are, but goodness gracious, how do you fix it?
Yeah, I mean, I still continue to be baffled by the offensive line. Just
Makes no sense, but I can
the
just tell you
inconsistency, because it's not just. There'll be times where they play great, or play like we expect them to play.
Like you play well against USC, where you finally put together 60 minutes as an offensive line, and then you come out and have the performance that you did against UCLA on the road.
Yeah.
Like, can they find anything resembling consistency off the bye is going to be arguably the biggest talking point for the entire second half of the season here.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is, because it's not like we haven't seen flashes where we've seen the other side, because we have.
Yep.
But it's the continued just uneven play by that group, where it's a penalty, or I thought the interior part of the line really gave up some pressures this game,
just like they have all season.
Yeah,
the interior is struggling.
Yeah, because it's it's maddening, because we've seen when you give this quarterback enough time to process, and he can deliver. I mean, he's got some clutchness. He's got some clutch gene, or whatever you call it, to him. I mean, he when you need to play from him, the guy makes it.
I mean, he should have 3 game-winning drives already if you can make a kick in the opener. I mean, he's led back-to-back drives, or back-to-back games, game-winning drives. And you even think about that final touchdown to Darius Taylor. That's the 5th read.
Yeah.
That is the 5th read on a play that Daniel Jackson can't be a part of because his helmet gets ripped off on 2nd down. 3rd down, you go from motioning Christian Driver across. You look there, he's not there. The rest of your 3 receivers all come right. They're not there. And the only reason Darius Taylor finally finds a little part of hope in the passing game is because they don't blitz him, which was their game plan all week. That entire game was blitz, so Darius has to stay in. They don't. Darius is like, oh boy, no one's on me. Let me leak left. Entire play goes right. Your quarterback stands in the pocket, is poised, delivers an on-the-money throw, and you win the game. I mean,
that was great.
Where would this team be without Max Brosmer right now? They wouldn't be 4-3. I can tell you that.
I shudder to think about it. And yeah, you give them a little bit of time, and really, if they if they got the onside kick at Michigan, we might be talking about a fourth come from behind victory.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, that's completely hypothetical, but the way he operates in that space and the plays that they were running, I mean, even the way that drive started with the pass to Jackson, and then he got Spencer, and a nice 3rd and 2 to Le'Meke Brockington, which was a great play.
3rd and 2 throwback screen in the red
I
zone
know.
was a choice, and it worked. So who are we to say otherwise? Goodness.
Yeah, it was tremendous, and he's so dialed, and you got to give credit to Harbaugh too, because they're obviously fine. I mean, Daniel Jackson had 10 catches. Like, everybody knows he's wide receiver 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not like he's sneaking up on anybody. And Max is an equal opportunity guy. He'll throw it. He obviously goes through his reads. We just talked about it, but that they were able to get him a little bit of space, and a couple of those was impressive. And he should have had 11, because I still don't know
11,
how they didn't give that pass on the sideline to him, because it was pretty clearly a catch.
Two things that I didn't get, and I don't get into officiating, but the catch looked like a clear catch, and the one targeting where the guy comes out of and lowers his head, that they didn't call. I clearly don't know what targeting is, because I thought that was textbook. I mean, the guy lowered his head. It came in with his head, leading with his head. How that wasn't a targeting, I don't understand, but.
Yeah, the officiating in that game, both sides, was interesting, especially with the amount of reviews. But I'd also say, as much as it's been about Brosmer and the game-winning drive, why did they get back into the game in the second half? Because UCLA just imploded with, I believe it was 8 penalties for 85 yards. I mean, they gave
105 yards. Yeah, 105 yards overall.
Yeah, they were just imploding there. And then, for as much as it is about the offense shooting itself in their own foot, I think the difference between last year's offense when they would do so and this year's is when Minnesota shoots themselves in the foot offensively this year, they don't turn over the football.
Right.
I mean, that's where it was bad in the first half on offense. I ain't going to be one to tell you otherwise. But no turnovers there is the reason that it was only 10-0 at halftime and not 17 or 20-0, which ultimately,
like Michigan.
plays the big part of why you're able to complete the comeback.
So what did you guys think of the decision to punt it 4th and 5 from about midfield, right? There's 2:40 left.
Yep.
And I'm sure if it was 4th and 3, he probably would have gone for it. But I'll tell you, I know it worked out, and so it obviously looks good, but UCLA essentially needed 1 first down to end the game.
1 yard,
Yeah, and they came up 1 yard short. Great play by Jack Henderson. But that was I was worried about that.
Yeah, I was sitting with Greeter next to him. I was like, they got to go for this. Now, I understand you got 3 timeouts and a 2-minute warning.
Yep.
And so you're going to be able to, and you needed a great punt, one, to pin him down there. But even if he'd kicked it into the end zone and they're starting, at the 20, UCLA is still going to run it up the middle, I think, even if they're not backed up onto their goal line. I think they're still going to run up the middle. But that 3rd down play is 1 yard from really backfiring on them.
Yeah.
My thing was UCLA's quarterback on the previous drive was unbelievable. I think he was 7 of 7 and threw that just an absolute dot for a 42-yard touchdown. And so you elect to punt it, and you're thinking you're going to punt the ball back to that guy after that last possession. Now, ultimately, it ends up working because Jack Henderson gets him on the ground a yard beforehand, which then gets into the other flip side of the coin of we were talking about on my end. If you're Deshaun Foster, would you go for it? I mean, you're a team on a 4-game losing streak. A first down ends the game, essentially. It would have been, and yes, if it backfires, then Minnesota gets the ball at I think it was their own, it was UCLA's 12. And ultimately, he decides to punt it. Minnesota drives the length of the field. But I would also say it's weird to talk about PJ Fleck maybe making a correct head coaching decision and one that we're not sitting here lamenting. Now, it's worth discussing, which we're doing, but it went about as well for PJ as we've seen a decision like that go all season for him in that regard.
Well, yeah, you got, the punt was perfect where he wanted it, and I know because you have those timeouts, you're banking on UCLA doing what they do, just run up the middle and in that possession lasting only,
30 seconds, basically.
30 seconds, whatever it was. But, man, if Henderson doesn't make that tackle, they lose the game, right?
Yeah,
they can run it out then, kneel it out. So you're counting on your defense to, make a play and hoping you get the ball back. It was a gamble. It was 4th and 5. I was it 4th and 4, 4th and 5.
I think that's what it was, Burnsy. What
Yeah.
do you remember? I could look it up quick, but I think it
You
was
talking
something
about
like
on
that.
the Henderson tackle afterwards?
No.
When they punted it.
When they punted it was
4th and 6 or 7 from the UCLA 47.
Okay, so is that yeah?
Yeah, it was that far away. I think it was 4th and 7.
I mean, the flip side is, if you don't get it, now you're giving them good position to go down and really put you away.
Yep.
So you can
It was
argue
probably
it both
just a little
ways.
too far. It was probably just a little too far to go.
Yeah.
Because they'd been throwing short of the sticks all night too, on 3rd and 7, 3rd and 6, whatever. Like it wasn't a lot, like you said, because they were blitzing a lot. They were trying to get the ball out of his hand, but it worked out, man. And then, like we say, the drive was tremendous, with how good Max was, and he is just a dude. I mean, he's just, he's probably sick of me asking him this question, but I'm like, 12 months ago you were, playing, New Hampshire against Delaware, and now you're here at the Rose Bowl leading a 2-minute drive to get your second straight win over a California team. Like, that's pretty wild. But he's been great. I mean, he's just, and Burnsy, like you said, very rarely has he put the ball in harm's way. And that, as we know, that's such a prerequisite to play for PJ. And part of the reason why I think, are letting him do all these things is because they trust that he's going to make the right decision. And like, even after like the North Carolina game, he thought he could get outside and like throw it away, and he found out, I'm not in New Hampshire anymore. He got sacked. Like, he doesn't make
lineman chasing him down. Yeah,
he does. That was like the first drive of the night. He doesn't make that mistake anymore. Even on that drive, he got out of a little bit of trouble, threw it away quick. Like, just don't put us in harm's way. Like, know the situation. He's just, and PJ post game talked to me about how there's been, like, as he's gotten here, he's like, everything that is in front of him, it takes him like a day and a half to figure it out. Like, we give him this tough offense, struggle for a little bit, next day he's got it. This install, struggle for a little bit, next day he's got it. Playing against Power 5, struggles a little bit, now he's got it. Like, he's a dude. I mean, it's in 1 year. I mean, he's leaving quite an imprint. We'll see where the next 5 games go, but they don't win these last 2 games, obviously, without Max Brosmer.
And for a head coach whose mantra is the ball is the program, I can't think of a better quarterback who takes care of the football. Now, he may not make all the throws, and he's got to start to figure out the deep ball a little bit more, because that's the one area of his game that hasn't translated yet from New Hampshire to Minnesota, is completing those deep passes. But if that somehow comes here in these last 5-6 games, I mean, it could be special. And again, you go from someone like Ethan last year to Harbaugh goes out into the portal, gets Brosmer. It's gone about as well as it could, I think, for the expectations that everyone had for Max, and he has just put it together here in back-to-back games.
The thing that I think really stands out the most to me is there's something about a quarterback that just puts it on his receivers and lets them make plays.
Yeah.
And so often we saw balls at their feet, balls behind them, balls flying over their head, where you're making your receivers twist and contort to try to catch a pass that should be on. The guy puts it on the money. His accuracy, he just he puts it where his receivers can make a play, or he puts it where it's supposed to be. I think that's, to me, like the most impressive thing is, like, one is maturity, and just he seems kind of like he has a good presence about him, that he doesn't, the moment's never too big for him, right? No matter what the situation. Now, I thought first half North Carolina, first half Iowa, he was amped up.
Yeah,
that's going to happen, right? Like, I don't think the moment was too big. I just think he was excited, and we saw it a little bit wild in those first halves. But the guy just puts it on his receivers and lets them make plays.
The last thing I'll say on this, we'll take a break. This is something to look forward to, Burnsy, for you specifically for next year's QB1, Drake Lindsey.
Mm-hmm.
Drake Lindsey appears to love Max Brosmer.
Oh, they do.
And what I mean by that is, like, he is in his pocket at all times, which I think is only beneficial. Like, because he's going to have to play next year, right? I mean, that's the plan. That's what we think. He's the number 2 quarterback right now. If something happens to Max, like, they're probably going to be starting, redshirt freshman quarterback, because I don't think his red shirt has been burned. But I think to be around him and see how he works, because as we know, Max is taking like 2 non-degree seeking classes. He's here to play football.
Yes.
He's got his degrees. Like, he's I mean, he's basically
Yeah.
beating the coaches to film on Monday and Tuesday morning. Like, and I'm not saying Drake can do that because he's actually got to go to school, like legitimate school. Like he's got a degree, but I think we're going to hear a lot about that next year, like spring ball at this time, like what Drake is observing from Max about how he goes about his business. And like, I think we'll see if, I mean, I'm probably overthinking it, but I just like that Drake, I mean, even the stuff he's tweeting out about him after the game is like, this is the guy.
Mhm.
And it looks like in this dude's pocket every step of the way, which to me is a dream scenario if you're Greg Harbaugh and PJ Fleck.
And he has been since he got here in January. That was part of the whole pitch. Once Minnesota told Drake that they were going to go get a transfer quarterback, and once they told him it was Max, he's a very accomplished quarterback. We'll see what he does in the Big Ten, but he's someone that you should learn all of his mannerisms and everything from. And I think Drake has embraced that. I think both of them have embraced that role as much as it is Drake trying to learn from the older guy. I talked with Max at Big Ten Media Days about, he and his father and Greg Harbaugh were like, okay, well, this is the next guy. We need to work with him and train him. We need to get him up to speed on how it is to be a Big Ten quarterback. Now we'll see if it ends up translating for Drake over these next handful of years, but I think it's gone as well in that regard with your quarterback of the future as you can ask for.
All right, well, let's take a break here. We'll do the same thing we did last week. We will give Chip a moment to collect himself as we pause, and when we come back, we will talk about Koy Perit. Chip just coughed over that, so I want to make sure everybody heard me. Koy Perit after the break. And we will pause to talk about Jack's Cafe, our great partner here on the podcast, jaxcafe.com, a Minneapolis institution. They've got something for everybody. I know Bill was fired up about the Rose Bowl trip. Bill, you're spending too much time up at St. John's, man. You got to cut the cord on the Johnnies. You got to get out on one of these. He's got a daughter in Boulder. He's got a kid up in St. John's, or at least a graduate. Pasadena would have looked good on you, Bill Kozlak, but we appreciate everything you've done for us. Jack's Cafe. It's brunch season, perfect brunch weather right now. Probably only have a few more weeks to get that done. Phenomenal dinner, phenomenal happy hour. If you're planning for a holiday party, they've got room for you, groups from 15 to 400. I just can't say enough good things about our great partners, Chip, at Jack's Cafe.
Absolutely. And probably still have a few more, maybe a couple more weeks of patio season, right? I bet Bill has it beautiful looking out there in that patio now, which is the best patio in the Twin Cities. I think they've actually won awards for that, which they should.
Yep.
So take your wife, your husband, your girlfriend, your mom, your dad.
Take them all.
Date night out. Take them out and ask for the patio while it's still. This would be a great night, like chilly, not too cold, but sit out there. And not the best part of Jack's, but one of my favorite part of Jack's. Ample parking, baby.
The only thing it's missing is phone chargers at every table. Otherwise, you might just move in. That's the only thing. And maybe they'll get that accoutrement at some point.
I would put the house up for sale and move in, buddy.
Yeah, it'd be in. Bernsey, you're the brunch aficionado from all of us, and you're the one that gets there probably more than the rest.
Well, that's where I even had multiple people while walking the streets of Pasadena, or whether it was the Soda Social, that said, yeah, we should have probably tweeted out when we went to Jack's Cafe the other day or the other week or the other month that we went there, but we went there because of you guys. Well, make sure to put it on social media. It's okay to do so, even if you don't have a big social footprint. But whether it's brunch, whether it's burgers, whether it's the bar, jaxcafe.com.
Yeah, and definitely give us credit for it. All right, we're needy. We're needy. Give us credit. Give us credit that you went there because of us. Then tell Bill if you see him there. He's usually at the front, stacking menus and getting people where they need to go. He's full service. So, but yeah, definitely let us know so we can let Bill know, because we're needy and we need that kind of attention and we need that kind of adulation. jaxcafe.com, jaxcafe.com. Floor is yours, guys. Koy Perit, your thoughts.
It's funny how the more he plays, the more big plays you get, huh? You think there's a correlation to that? Yeah. First interception changed the game. Second interception sealed the game. It's funny when they I saw him run back there for the Hail Mary, and I'm like, nobody's out jumping this kid for this ball. No, there's no one around him. Obviously, he was just playing center field there. But the first one is just a diving interception and that changes the game. I mean, absolutely. Now they came down and scored, but previous to that, but that play put a spark in them and changed the game, and just already at 4 interceptions, a record for a freshman there, and a Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week. Bernsey, how many snaps did he play? Because it seemed like once he got in there, he didn't leave the field.
So he played 35 defensive snaps the first 5 weeks of the season. Now the last 2 weeks combined, he's over 100. Now some of that is because Kerry Brown went down in that USC game. Some of it's because Aiden Gooseby went down in the UCLA game. But it's also because they trust him more with different assignments now, and he also just continues to make plays. He has some of the best instincts we've seen from a Gopher safety at this young of an age. And I think, what do you think, Tyrone Carter as a young, again, Newbin and Winfield. I mean, Winfield, I guess, played really well in spurts as a young player.
Yeah.
But, I mean, to be even mentioned in the same breath as a couple of those guys is just, it's incredible. And I think the thing with Koy that is surprising to me is you knew he was going to be athletically gifted and everything, but we talked about Brosmer not making really many of the same mistakes. From what I've been told behind the scenes, and even what my own 2 eyes have told me, you're not seeing him make a lot of the same mistakes. Now, does Koy have some things to clean up? Absolutely, especially in the run game, tackling, and that's going to come. He is not perfect. He is not a perfect player, and he is still a true freshman who has played now 7 games. I mean, there are going to be lows at some point, but the first couple of chapters of the Koy Perit story just continued to just be enthralling for people like Mr. Football across Minnesota.
The thing I like too, like as a returner, he takes some big hits because he's not looking to fair catch.
Right.
I mean, and that's, you don't want him to get too beat up that way, but I like just the aggressive mentality, whether to die for that interception. There's no hesitancy on his part. Like, no, he's going to make a play every time, whether it's returning a kick, returning a punt, whatever. He's not fair catching if he doesn't have to. He's not playing back on defense if he sees an opportunity to go make a play. And so, the door opened for him because of injuries, but you can't take him off the field now. I mean, now you just roll with this because he's too valuable. He's making too many plays. And sometimes the guy just forces you to play him. And we've seen this over and over. And I use the Maroney example. It's like a guy is so good, he forces you to play him. Like, you can't, he's your best option. And so yes, Burns, you're right. I'm sure there's going to be some times where he makes a mistake that, makes the coaches, angry or whatever. But it's like, he's going to make far more good plays and game-changing plays than he does mistakes.
And that's even where, as much as it was Koy Perit, and he's been a beneficiary of a couple of center field plays at the end of games. Now, one against USC, he went up and got, and then he deserves credit. The other one is just he's standing there at the goal line, and that's where Ethan Garbers threw the football. I would say, I think Devin Easter, number 91, I mean, he had one of his best games of his Gopher career. Tips the pass on Cody Lindenberg's interception. On Koy's interception, he's the interior pressure where Jackson Howard was the exterior pressure on the outside there. I thought Lindenberg played his best game of the year. And then you'd also notice that was the first game that Cody had played without that gigantic arm brace.
Yeah.
Of which I asked him about afterwards. And, he said he hasn't really needed it for a couple of weeks, but it'd been a comfortability thing. And he said, I just decided not to wear it tonight. So.
Hey, Bernsey, just at first watching it, to me, it seemed like Anthony Smith showed up. Did the film review
it
seemed like
played well too.
It seemed like he was impactful with his pass rush a lot.
Well, that's where they're just also so banged up on the defensive line. Like Jalen Logan Redding played, I think, 7 snaps. Anthony and Devin Eastern had to play a bulk of the snaps inside because they don't trust anybody else there. I thought Ja had one of his best games against the run. I'd say this. I didn't think the corners played particularly well. Especially Ethan Robinson, which was bound to happen. I mean, they missed right before the end of the first half. UCLA has a guy wide open in the end zone, and Garbers just misses him and then gets beat over the top on that 42-yarder. Again, with this defense, the way that it is, it's 3 and out, or it's a turnover, or it's the 10-12 play touchdown drive.
Sometimes it's a
42 yarders.
turnover after 10 plays.
Yeah.
Like
That's it,
USC, it was a turnover after 10
Or
plays.
the Cody Lindenberg interception. They're deep
Yeah.
in the red
Yeah.
zone.
Yeah.
Eastern gets a finger on it. So that's where, if they're going to get better, it starts on third down. And where they were the worst third down defense in the Big Ten last year, they're 14th this year. But that's where, if you dive into it more, I think this defense through 7 games, if my math is correct, has faced like 24, 25 third and ones or third and twos, which inflates the stats.
Yeah,
But it's
hard place
also
to
be
live.
better on first and second
Well,
down
that's
so
it,
you
yeah,
can get
yeah.
out of your own way.
Yeah, you're not
So-
creating third and long. It's funny, the first half, it felt like their pass rush was just like a hair away. Like they were one step away. They
You're
were
right.
And the quarterback, to his credit, he stood in there and made some throws, but it felt
Yep.
like they were just a beat away from getting to him. And I thought they started to do that more in the second half. Now, the 42-yarder, that was just, you tip your hat to that quarterback. That you can't throw that one any better. I mean, that was a great throw by him.
You know, UCLA has good Big Ten players too, despite their record.
Yeah, that's
and I
the
thought
thing.
they played. You got to give UCLA some credit, and Fleck talked about it afterwards a little
Totally.
bit. But they played like a team that was backed into a corner. Like
Yeah.
they hadn't given up yet. They knew that this was going to be their opportunity, and they played as such for spurts of that game. Like, I don't think they're Purdue bad. Like, I think Purdue's
No.
bad. I don't think UCLA is that bad, but you also got to give them credit because they showed up at home and they got good players too.
Their problem is they were so undisciplined.
Yes.
Their penalties. I mean, they were
Yes.
just ridiculous timing.
Two
in those
15-yarders
penalties,
on
too.
one of the Gophers' touchdowns, right? I mean, they had
Correct.
2 separate
Yeah.
15-yard. I mean, that's just giving a third of the field away just by being
Yeah.
undisciplined.
Yeah, they played the Deshaun Foster press conference in the press box after a game, and that's what he said. He said, "I saw an undisciplined team." I'm like, "Yeah, it was." You know,
You're the head coach, man.
Yeah,
It's
that's
up to
your
you.
responsibility. Yeah, I know. So
Yeah.
it was. But they had. I mean, the quarterback was better than I thought, but I did think defensively, at least first half, I just felt like they were almost home on their rushes, but they were a step away from getting to them, and I thought I thought Anthony Smith and Devin Easter were really good.
I'd also say I love the kid, and he's one of the best personalities on the team, Guardsy.
I was going to give you a minute to talk about this.
But what do you do about Dragan Kesich at this point? Because now he's missed 6 field goals, misses the 42, 43-yarder, another one to the right. All 6 misses have been to the right. And I know the counterpoint would be, well, Ryan, 5 of those misses have been from 40 plus. And I get it, but he was 8 of 10 from 40 plus last year. He's now 3 of 8. He's missed more kicks than any other Big Ten kicker. Now, the other counterpoint would be have your offense be better. And sure, yeah, you don't want to use your kicker as many times as they are. But what do you do if he comes out against Maryland after the bye week and you hope he gets a mental reset to figure it out? But what do you do if he comes out against Maryland and he misses another, say, 40 to 45-yard field goal?
I mean, first things first is I would take a long, hard look at the 50-plus ones because that, I think, got this early. It was like anytime they were near anything, it was, 56, bang, put them out there. And, like, it's not the NFL. Like, now in the NFL, it's like 58. No, there's no problems, right? Like, Will Reichert, it's like from anywhere. We'll just go. I think you got it. Like, the 40, you got to keep putting them out there for 40 to 45. You just do. Like, unless it's 4th and 1 or 4th and 2. But the 50-plus ones, I would be waiting. I mean, you give a guy a chance to get out of it a little bit, but I would have a different mentality on the 50-plus for now, or figure out why, take this week. And like you said, they've been all to the same thing. So you would think it would be an easy fix to correct that if it's literally the same thing every single time. But I think you got to give him a chance to work out of it. I really do. I don't know what the options are behind him. And he's shown that he can be the Big Ten kicker of the year. So it's in there somewhere. They just got to figure it out.
Yeah, I agree with all those points. I have no idea who the backup is or if that's even an option. But if you're pulling everything right, it tells you it's probably mechanical, right? Now, I don't know anything about kicking. I mean, that's their expertise.
A problem.
But
yeah,
but you're right, Guardsy. It's like you might have to alter your strategy now. Like, okay, we can't just say we're in his range at 50 to 55. Let's, whatever. No, you're going to have to think about your play calling, your game management, all that now, because it's a problem now. Like, he's not reliable from long distance right now. And so I'm not saying you have to, make a switch, but you also need to figure out, put him in the best situations to get his confidence back, because I got to imagine you're right. He's a great kid, but his confidence has to be shaken a little bit now. So they need to figure out the best way to kind of put him in a situation where he can get some confidence with these kicks.
Yeah, it's just, I feel for him because nobody likes to see a guy like that struggle. Again, he's one of the best personalities on the team, one of the best personalities of specialists we've seen in a long time. I think he and Pete Mortel are two of the most personable guys you'll ever meet.
Yep.
I mean, there's a reason they featured him as much as they did in the offseason, because he's such a likable guy. And to go from the highest of highs to now, the hope would be this is rock bottom for him. With the way it's gone, they need to figure out a way during this bye week to have him get a mental reset, because even on the missed field goal, that ball's still climbing at 40 yards. I mean, he clearly has the leg from
It's
anywhere.
a rocket. Yeah.
But they got to be able to figure it out mechanically, and that's got to be the number one thing for Bob Ligashevsky on this bye week.
So next week, we'll be able to kind of spin around and talk maybe more global issues in the Big Ten and college football in general. But let's spin around. I got a couple of topics to just spin around here in our final couple of minutes before Mr. Projects has to do his latest interview, which has us up at the crack of dawn to do this podcast today.
It's always about Chip. Have you noticed that on this podcast?
Have I noticed it? How could I miss it? How could I miss it? Have I noticed it? Yeah, it's obvious. It's unbelievable. We're just glad he can still do it with us. I mean, it's going to become a time where, guys, I'm out. I can't do the pod. He started this whole thing. He birthed this whole thing, and now it's just he's letting us know who the alpha is. There's no doubt about that.
Yep.
Yeah, he's got his planner now, and I wish we didn't get a planner, because he would have forgotten all these things that have messed with our schedule. What do you guys make of the 2 time zone bit that everyone's talking about now that we've lived it? I made a complete mess of my day by not taking a nap between the Fox 9 show at 7 o'clock local time in California and the 6 o'clock tip. I look at USC struggling through the first half of their game against, Penn State, getting down big, getting off the plane from Harrisburg, as James Franklin told us, because their runway is not long enough. Which, by the way, the irony of a Penn State coach complaining about logistics when for years Penn State's literally the most impossible place to get to in the Big Ten for anybody.
Yeah.
It sucks for all of us. And then we stay at a hotel that was built in 1975 and updated in 1965. But yeah, let us know about the runway, James Franklin. Sorry you had to drive to Harrisburg one time in 12 years. Thoughts and prayers, as Bernsey would say. Also, by the way, to Franklin's credit, his players tried to put the "We Are" flag at midfield, and he went up and grabbed it like a disappointed parent and said, "We don't do this," which I love.
Great.
Yeah, so I like James Franklin. I always rip these coaches and then go, I like these guys, I respect these guys. But we have to take a bigger plane, and our city needs to look at the airport grant.
Extend the runway. He wants the runway extended there.
Yeah, how about look into the Ramada at State College, Coach Franklin? Google it. If anybody wants to Google it, check out the Ramada State College. I think it's the Ramada. May have changed hands.
It is.
Don't know.
Well,
but the flags that hang over the pool are literally from the Bobby Bell era. So, just let's worry about the Ramada first before we do the runway. But Penn State kind of sleptwalked through the first half of that game. Now, USC is obviously going to play better. They're not feeling good after losing to the Gophers, but Penn State really had to sweat it out to get that victory, and it was a great finish. And your guy, Michael Lansburns, he misses the field goal in overtime, and then Penn State knocks it in and comes out of California with a win. But I think there is something to look at Washington getting trucked by Iowa. I don't think Washington's that bad, but after the second half, they did.
Is it 2-10 now? Is that the record when you have to cross 2 time zones in the Big Ten?
I think so.
Something like that. It's not good.
I mean,
it's not good.
No, I think, for a disclaimer, I think the favorites in those games are now like 9-3.
So
a lot of it was, some of it was the better team was the one that was hosting or whatever it may be. But between Minnesota's start, to your point, Penn State's start, Washington getting trucked, what I think is more of a coin flip game than many people thought. it's something to monitor. I mean, you can't really point to it with Ohio State more or less because I think Ohio State came up pretty well, but it is something that we're all going to have to keep in mind here going forward. That's for sure.
I think I don't think it's immediately worth dismissing like we do with a lot of these things. Like a lot of times when it comes to this, oh, it's an excuse, blah blah blah. Yeah. It might be, but just knowing how, I mean, just think about how we felt that day, sitting out there all day. And now I won't speak for you guys, but I'm not exactly a finely tuned athlete at this point in my life, and I'm not, having every second of my day planned out by when I can nap and when I should hydrate. But I do think it's at least worth monitoring the next few years as we get more data. You mentioned the Ohio State and Oregon game. How do we feel about Dan Lanning purposely getting the penalty and exploiting the loophole to make it that much more difficult for Ohio State to move the ball? You take a 12 men on the field penalty because Ohio State's going to lose 4 seconds. Yeah. I'd be mad at him. It feels like cheating, but it's not, right? Now, will they change that moving forward? Let's see, because that was smooth. I mean, great job by Dan Lanning.
That is a coach who has thought about game situations and game management. And if we get in a situation, we're going to purposely take a 12-man on the field penalty to kill some time. And like you said, you could be mad at it, but kudos to that coaching staff to have thought out every scenario and to have a plan for those situations where it happened for them and they took advantage of it. I applaud the guy.
I still even think to that game where it's then Will Howard sliding at the end of the game, which, what are you doing, man? But then on the flip side, you also got the Dan Lanning player who spits in the face and gets ejected. Yeah. I mean, that game had everything between some boneheaded plays across the field and then some galaxy brain plays like Dan Lanning throwing 12 guys onto the field, knowing what he's doing to try and end the game. So, I mean, that was one of the best games. And I know that we didn't really get a chance to watch it because we're all working on it.
Right.
But I think it was the most watched NBC game or Big Ten game since I think I saw 2008. There was like 13 million people at the peak who were watching that game. Which
that's what they wanted.
And I've seen this take. People say this, and I agree with it because I've come 180 on it. For years, I was one of those guys that don't expand the playoff because the regular season of a college football is the best there is because it feels like every week's an elimination for someone. And if you expand it, then you're going to somehow lessen the drama and the thrill of the regular season. No. I've come around. That was so short-sighted. It enhances it. It has no bearing on it because you're still going to get those games right there. That doesn't cheapen the regular season. A game like that. So I appreciate now having the expanded playoffs because it's you're opening it up to more more access to more teams, and it does not have an impact on the regular season. The drama of it, the weekly feel of this game's important. It has no impact on that whatsoever.
No, now Tennessee, Alabama in a week might be an elimination game, right?
Could be,
but those teams already lost the game. It gives you breathing room, and I think it incentivizes. Now with all these super conferences, now those games are going to happen anyway. But even part of the SEC Big Ten meetings, Coyle even said to me the last 2 weeks, like we should be playing more, and especially when they're going to. It sounds like try to just commandeer the entire playoff for themselves and leave two spots for the rest of the country. But it alleviates the pressure of having to be perfect. And Coyle said it a million times, you're not going to see 12-0 very often anymore, which is fine because you're going to get on, what was that, October 12th, USC or Ohio State. I get everybody confused. Yeah. Oregon, Ohio State at Autzen in front of 13 million people that, has an impact on the playoff, sure, in terms of seeding or now either, Ohio State probably can't drop another game. Maybe they can, I don't know. But it incentivizes these games to be played. Coaches now aren't going to be – now I worry about what that does for the MAC and the Mountain West and because they need these bye games to fund their programs and things like that. Sure. So that might just go away. That might be one of the collateral damage bits here. But you're right, Chipper. It's to have more of these games, and we've got more coming up, obviously, where you just have these banger Saturdays with like top 15 matchups all over the place. in front of 10, 13 million people on TV and a great college football scene. And it's awesome. And I think we're only going to see more of that because I think everybody understands what that means for everybody.
And last point, you said 13 million, and that is why we had conference expansion, because that's what TV executives live for.
Kevin Warren was probably in London with the Bears watching that game, at night and going, "You're welcome. You're welcome. We're going out and blowing this thing out. You are welcome, everybody. Now I got to go get my Bears stadium built on the lakefront again. But you're welcome for blowing this crap out and getting these TV deals and getting these 4 West Coast teams. You might not have liked me. I was only there for like 2 years, and I didn't know you didn't like my COVID response. Well, enjoy Oregon and Ohio State, everybody, while I'm here with the Bears. Anything you want to add on that, Bernsey, before we got one more topic?
Well, I was just going to ask Chip, now that it's the bye week, what time's his flight to Knoxville to go watch his Tennessee Vols take on Bama?
Mike Grimm is going. I've given him all my
the voice of the Gopher
is going.
First trip
he always
to Tennessee,
has a great
bye
week.
The third Saturday of October. I will be taking in my first Iowa State game this Saturday. It's Dad's weekend at my son's fraternity, so
beer games.
We will be
Chargers,
doing some beer games.
Beer games and Chargers. This is a big weekend. Well, I hope you're good to join us next Tuesday. Just keep us posted.
I will be there.
Do you want to save Jackson Colic for next week, or do you got 2 minutes?
No, I'll do it real quick. Yeah. I had a chance to go Friday, spend some time with him and talk to his family beforehand and his coaching. Tremendous kid. Just a really solid. Everybody at the school, I had assistant principals and people come and say, "You're going to love this kid. Such a great, mature leader."
That's awesome.
Everything about him. Super athletic. He has a little bit of a arm issue that he was rehabbing. The plan was really not going to throw deep balls, but he threw some quick hitting, some screens. The thing that really impressed me is his mobility. He's a big kid too, 6'4", 215, strong, super fast. I mean, he is really, really fast and athletic. I think Gopher fans should be very excited for him, not only athletically, but just a great kid, wonderful family. Had a hard story that he had a younger sister that died of SID, sudden infant death syndrome, when she was 32 days old. He was a 12-year-old, wasn't playing football at the time, really had some hard grief that he was dealing with, lost interest in baseball. He was a high-level baseball pitcher, quit baseball. Somebody said, "You should try football," took up football, and really, he said he found a safe place for him in his grief and kind of get his emotions out. Wow. And really just poured himself into it. So it's stories on Star Tribune now, and really just a wonderful kid and wonderful family, and Gophers fans should be super excited to get him.
I was about to say too, he's a different flavor to this Greg Harbaugh quarterback room, where you got Drake Lindsey next year, the taller, less mobile pocket passer. And then you got Jackson Colic, who's the more athletic. I think he was the section shot put champion as well.
Yeah,
he does have an arm. He's more athletic. You're trying to get different kind of bodies in that room. And I think that anybody that Caleb DeBoer and Ryan Grubb wanted before they ended up taking new positions, if you don't trust the Gopher staff for whatever reason, I think those two are a pretty good indicator of what they know what they're looking for as a quarterback.
Yeah, good idea, Chip, to go down there. I know Greeter went down there as well. Brought his poor wife with him.
Can you tell people what time you got there, by the way, Chip, for a 7 p.m. game?
I landed. Well, the coach said, "Come on down and hang out." So I got there like at.
We landed at like 10:30, 11. Yeah.
Yeah, I was there. I had lunch and went down there. Got there at 2:00. Just hung out with the coaches in the coaches' room, and right an hour. We were sitting in there an hour after Jackson walks in. He's carrying bags of food. He went and picked up food for all the coaches and the teammates, and
Love it.
Just a really, really mature, sharp, young guy that I think is going to have a bright future here.
Looked like a terrible setting for high school football too, by the way.
Holy cow! You go up on looking down on the it's on a hill, and you're looking down on the Pacific Ocean and sunset there. One of the assistant coaches told me his head coach actually was Cam Bynum's freshman coach at J. Sarah years ago. But they said sometimes they'll stop practice and say, "Boys, let's look at the sunset," because not everybody gets to experience this. So really just a picturesque postcard setting for high school football and a school, and really nice people there in that community.
Yeah, the Newport Coast everyone talks about Newport Beach. Newport Beach is
Yeah.
great. The Guard family discovered the coast a few spring breaks ago.
That's right. Yeah.
And let's just say they would like to go back. I've been given firm instructions by the people that run the house, my 3 children, that Newport Coast would be in the mix there. And I even remember going to Malibu a few years ago and driving through Pepperdine with my wife. And we got up the hill, up the mountain, as we were instructed to do. We got out of the car on campus, and my wife said, "Why did I go to college in Moorhead, Minnesota?"
That's right.
And I say, "Yeah, I think we're all asking that question."
It's because she loved
yeah.
the Red River, right?
Yeah, she loved.
Yeah.
She loved. Packing sandbags as part of her spring break every year for the yearly flood. All right. Well, good story there, Chip. Everybody read that at StarTribune.com. Check everything out that Burnsy's doing at GopherIllustrated.com. We'll have a bye week edition next week and preview the Maryland game, homecoming. It's a 2:30 kick. If you somehow missed that. Thanks, everybody that came out and saw us, either at the Soda Social or just anywhere around town. It was great to see so many Gopher fans. Hope everybody had an awesome time. It looked like you did. Hope everybody got home safely. Thanks to Jack's Cafe, and we will talk to you next week on the Pear and a Spare podcast. Goodbye, everybody.